And good evening, everyone. I am Jonathan McNamara, and you're watching another episode of JMU Sound Off. The Dukes are dancing, and we just found out they are Brooklyn bound as the Dukes will take on the Badgers of Wisconsin University in the first round of the NCAA tournament on Friday in Brooklyn, New York. And with that, we're going to bring on the other members of our team for a rapid reaction to the news we all just saw. A exuberant crowd at the Atlantic Union Bank Center. Taylor's blasting some music in the background. He's got his shades. I don't think anybody's more excited about Brooklyn than Taylor. Steve Brown also joining us tonight. Steve, you were telling us before in the pre-show you're actually quite familiar with the area around the Barclays Center. I am as well, as my hockey team used to play in that arena before moving out to Long Island. I'm going to go to you first, Steve. First of all, for fans of JMU who just heard the news about Brooklyn, I think when we looked around the different sites, obviously some people looked at Pittsburgh, they look at Charlotte as possible venues. Brooklyn seemed to be the one destination that kind of crossed in terms of everyone's excitement for the possibilities. And it also sets up the opportunity for JMU, if they were to win that first game, to potentially have a matchup against a team that even casual basketball fans know a little bit about in the Duke Blue Devils. Your initial thoughts?
Yeah, looking for Brooklyn's the place I wanted to be. I tweeted about that, I think, yesterday, and was kind of begging that we get to Brooklyn. We'll bring a ton of people up to 90, up 95, and go and invade that city, that borough. It's going to be a blast. That's actually a good setting for some really good games before JMU. UConn is playing, and then FAU is playing up there, and then you've got us, and then you've got Duke playing. So I'm imagining we're the night session. I don't know. Normally, UConn is at noon. The number one seed gets to play at noon. And I would imagine then they would probably match them with, unless they want to put FAU at night and play us during the afternoon. They may do that because the FAU Northwestern game is a good game, and FAU was in the Final Four last year. So I'm not sure how they're gonna do it, but doesn't matter. It's going to be a great time for everybody.
Yeah, Jared Sherman already sporting his No Sleep Till Brooklyn. I feel like that's what's channeling through Taylor right now, is that the song's been playing in his head since he heard the announcement. Taylor, again, you've watched
Stevie Wonder.
Team.
Look, it looks like Stevie Wonder. Look at it.
A little bit, yeah. Taylor, you've watched this team as close as anyone has over the last few months, and we all talked about the excitement that we had when the Dukes were automatically qualified and won the Sun Belt Championship. But now to know we have an opponent and a possible path through this tournament, your initial thoughts?
Torn a little bit, and the reason I'm torn is things seem to be lining up so well, so I'm trying not to be blinded. I mean, I got the shades on, the Sun Belt's sunny, the entire nation is looking at JMU. I think they're going to be, I guess one part of me, and I'm speaking purely as a fan here, this is not strategic by any way of how Coach Byington and the team should approach this game, but as a fan, I said, man, if we get that 12 seed, the whole 5-12 mantra that everyone talks about every single year, I mean, JMU may end up being the most picked 5-12 winner in the history of brackets, just because a lot of popularity around the brand this year with not only just basketball, but every other sport. So, I guess I would say if you care more about winning your bracket than your fandom for JMU, that JMU win isn't going to get you a whole lot, because I think a lot of people are going to pick up that point as well. And then the other thing that lines up well for us is Brooklyn. I mean, you want to talk about a major JMU alumni base, not only up there in the New York City area, but you have our DC alums, our Pennsylvania alums, a lot of our Boston folks that can come down from the north, and it just lines up incredibly well. If you take the JMU alumni map of where our folks are, it's probably the best destination. I'm down here in Botetourt. I would have loved to see Charlotte, but that's selfish. And so yeah, the location lines up, the opponent lines up. I mean, in terms of a 5, and no disrespect to Wisconsin, they just knocked off the number 1 team in the country, but they statistically probably they're statistically the worst 5 among the teams listed. The bracket that we're in, the 1, 2, 3, 4 in our bracket statistically have, I believe, the lowest net or RPI score. So again, this is the side of me that's like, I'm used to looking at things in purple tinted sunglasses. And so it does seem like such a good setup for JMU. I think it's important that we as fans and podcasters and media kind of scrutinize it a little bit more and see where there could be some obstacles in our way.
Well, I mean, obviously, you're entering an NCAA tournament. You're playing the best teams in the country at this point, or at the very least, the teams that are playing the best at this time of year. So you knew you were going to get a good opponent. I think one interesting nugget, and I've been transparent saying, in terms of basketball analysis, I probably have the least amount to offer for this. If this was the Frozen Four selection show, I could have you covered. But one thing I did notice was the body language. I mean, when you saw the reaction,
Right.
from JMU fans and
Yep.
players. I mean, exuberance is an understatement. Obviously, pumped to get in. It's all out of their chairs. Byington was fired up. Different reaction from Wisconsin. I'm sure Wisconsin fans would say that they've been there before, they've done that before. But at the end of the day, they know what they're facing is in a really strong JMU team who's caught the nation by storm, and they only have to ask their brother in the Big Ten, Michigan State, what JMU is capable of. But I did think it was interesting that the panel on CBS, very not only enthusiastic about their possible selections for JMU in this game, but just how excited they are for this matchup because they just thought it was going to be one of those games that would stand out.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tough for Wisconsin. I mean, they were rightfully pissed off. Dogs eat the crap out of Badgers. We're going to grab you and shake you like you've never been shaken before. So you guys come on from Wisconsin, come from Madison, Wisconsin, and we're going to roll you. I'll predict it right now. We win that game by 9, and it's not even that close. So I watched them play today. I've watched them play throughout their tournament. They're good. They're a good team, but a week's rest with our guys that go 9 deep, yeah, you don't stand a chance, Wisconsin. You can stay home if you want to. Would be perfectly happy to take a pass.
Well, one thing is for sure, if you look at this matchup, we're going to have a few days to talk about it, and I think this is again the benefit of this type of appearance in the NCAA tournament is just how many people not only again are going to be filling out those brackets, but are now going to be talking about JMU. As well as the national commentators and every sports radio show in the country will have segments on this match. Just wanted to ask you your thoughts, both of you, on the turnout at the Atlantic Union Bank Center. I thought that was really cool to see. Is all the schools kind of had their little snapshot or that their cameras from inside their arenas. Could not have been a better look for JMU to have that side of the stadium packed. And again, what this means going forward in terms of the fan base and the local community, as well as students, really starting to see this program as they have the football program as one of those national teams now that they're going to start to expect us to be in the tournament. I do think there can be a shift where we start to see the long-term benefits of an NCAA tournament appearance. I know I've heard from multiple people who have said they've always thought that the upside of an NCAA tournament appearance and sustained success in basketball, in many ways, far outweighs what you could even see in football. Taylor, any thoughts on that?
I mean, you just continue to highlight I mentioned it earlier, the JMU brand. And, you had the Julian Wooden interview with Coach Byington on CBS, and you had the AUBC in the background. Today, you had the crowd shot when they announced the teams. You have the AUCB in the background. I think a lot of people are shocked when they come to the Atlantic Union Bank Center for the first time that are not associated with JMU. I think they're shocked to not only see this is one of the top mid-major facilities in the country, but I can tell you from many of the P5 or P6 in basketball venues that I went to when I was at UTSA, there's a lot of major schools that don't have facilities as nice as the Atlantic Union Bank Center. And so getting to showcase that facility on national TV, same thing with our football stadium. I've noticed a lot more. I mean, the Bridgeport Stadium, the renovations are they're over a decade old at this point, but I feel like on Twitter and other social media platforms that so many of the national blogs have been, pointing out how cool of a stadium and cool an environment to see a game at Bridgeport Stadium in Harrisonburg. So yeah, I mean, you think of so many. I was watching, some of the clips from all the past NCAA tournaments, and you think of teams like Valpo. Valparaiso, Valpo is still a household name from, how many years ago did Bryce Drew hit that one shot in that one game? And Valpo, if they appear on your schedule, I mean, they haven't really been a force in college basketball for a very long time, but, you see it and it means something. So going into the tournament and having any level of success, and obviously talking to Jalen Carey and Xavier Brown earlier this week, I mean, they are not looking to be, hey, let's win a game. Let's make it to the Sweet 16. They saw what FAU did last year. They saw what San Diego State did. They know what VCU and George Mason and St. Peter's and all these teams that have had success in the past. We're a good basketball team. And one thing that sticks out to me, I know that the strength of schedule is vastly different between these two teams. JMU is, barely inside the top 200. Wisconsin, depending on what website you're looking at, they're looking at a top 25 strength of schedule for Wisconsin. But if you look at the national rankings across the board for Wisconsin, I mean, they're not in the top 100 in really any category. And if you look at JMU across the board, almost every category statistically, not only is JMU top 100, and a lot of them they're top 50. So what Wisconsin's going to have to do is they are going up against a team that is used to having their way with teams on the court and statistically being one of the best teams in the country. Wisconsin is one of the better teams in the country, obviously with their number 5 seed rating, but continuing to perform at that level is very hard to do with the schedule they have. So you have kind of two universes colliding. Obviously, I agree with you and Steve. The body language that you saw from the players, it was more of just it was more than just the excitement of seeing their name. That was a matchup I think they've scouted. I think it's a matchup that they wanted. And I think the Dukes are very pleased with how the bracket is laying out for them.
Hey, Taylor, can I ask you just a question? Because you went to the NCAA tournament. Correct me if I'm wrong. When you're with UTSA,
yes.
What is likely happening?
No, not with UTSA.
Not with UTSA.
I
You were
went
JMU.
the last year with JMU. Yeah.
Okay, so take us inside to what's probably happening though in the athletics staff right now. I am just curious. Like, you get that announcement. Obviously, we knew we were going to get into the tournament. We had some time to start to plan, but as you said, we didn't know where we were going until the world found out. What's probably happening inside the AUBC and what will be happening over the next couple of days. I know there's a lot of questions about that limited ticket allotment. I know that JMU has. We did see the email come out last week, though, that people were encouraging fans of JMU who want to be able to get to Brooklyn and see this game to do so through Ticketmaster as well as the venue sites, because that's probably going to be the best way that you're going to get a seat inside the Barclays Center.
Yeah. A lot of people maybe have the misinterpretation that JMU has some foreknowledge of how the bracket's going to be laid out. No, I mean, they are finding out when we are finding out. There's a lot of prep work that can be done prior to the announcement. In terms of getting all the structures in place for when things go live. And you even saw that earlier this week when the email went out from JMU. I will say there's probably a lot of JMU fans that aren't paying attention to their email, so they may not have seen the email that said, by the way, the best way to secure tickets is going to be through the venue. I think, I can't remember what the allotment was back in 2013, and I'm sure it hasn't changed very much, but it was a few hundred that was given to each team. So for anyone that's upset that they can't get their ticket allotment through JMU, recognize it's nothing personal. There are very small allotments that are given to the teams themselves. And so there is a lot of work going in. I'll also say that 2013 run probably is helping JMU a lot for what they're going through today, because the change in the landscape and the atmosphere of college athletics from 1994 to 2013 with media, internet, and just where JMU was as an athletic program, I'd say 2013 was more of a doing things for the first time in the way they're supposed to be done. A lot of the people that are on staff today were there for that 2013 season. So I would imagine as much work is going to be put in, and I'm talking late hours into the night. They're a well-oiled machine. They're going to have everything under control. And again, I stress this last episode, please rely only on official JMU, either social media channels or emails, because there's going to be a lot of information coming at you very fast. And so it's important to go through the source and not social media outside of the JMU accounts or message boards, Twitter, texts, all the culprits.
Yep. And I see Brooke Boyd mentioned in the comments, so I think it's a really good point, is that to really give credit to the students who showed up for the selection show. The students really rallied around all our athletic programs. We've been fortunate enough to have a number of students, whether it was from SGA or from the Student 2 Club, the Talking Sports group that's on campus now, and they've talked about that continued growth and excitement among the student body for football. But now what we're seeing in the support of basketball, we had great crowds from students throughout the year, record-breaking crowds across the board for JMU basketball. And I have a feeling this is only going to kind of really supercharge that support as, again, the entire student population now can fill out JMU on their bracket, and what that means for the long-term kind of bragging rights from their peers as they see UVA on the bracket, but they can, their friends that are at Tech and other schools around the country, they're going to be able to be proud about JMU being in the tournament. And hopefully this is something now that can be sustained, and we're not sitting around waiting another 10 years between tournament appearances. I did look at
Yeah.
the real quick, the combined. Oh yeah, go Taylor. Take if you want to.
Well, I was just gonna say let's talk about that real quick with the students, because I'm thinking back in our '04 national championship run for football, and then the 2013 for basketball. We were FCS in '04. In 2013, we were a play-in 16 seed. To talk any kind of trash talk to your UVA and Virginia Tech friends for most of the JMU fans' career, you're using some transitive property statistics of 5 or 6 teams to get to the point where you can somehow put up an argument that they would, we're in a year right now where the 2 major sports programs of any university, I mean, there's no question that JMU was the best football team in the state of Virginia. Well, there's some folks down in Lynchburg that might disagree, but in terms of
they don't count. Those clowns don't count. You don't count a church that has a pickup basketball team. Tell them to go screw, pool boys.
When it comes to UVA and Virginia Tech, there is no question that JMU was heads and shoulders ranked in any way you want to look at it in football this year. In men's basketball, we were heads and shoulders above both of those programs and for most of the year. And really, you can see with Virginia getting the play-in game, I mean, even the committee sees as an 11 seed, 12 seed JMU, you're practically in the same boat. So all I'm saying is these students are living in a time where when they're going home over break and they're coming home in the summer, the JMU Tech UVA discussions, I mean, it's not just a legitimate argument to be had. We have been the premier program in football and basketball in this state this year. And that's not to mention a bevy of other sports. We've beat them in lacrosse. We've beat them in baseball. And speaking of baseball, I got to mention, man, what a heartbreaker today for them to put up. But let's just talk about baseball. I mean, they ended Coastal's, 13, 15 game winning streak, I think, with beating them last night or yesterday. And then today, they were up 10-8 in the last, I don't know if it was the 13th, 14th, it was extra innings, and put up a real fight at Coastal on the road against the number 16 team in the nation. Baseball is going to do some damage this year. And then you saw softball. Softball also got a ranked win. So I'll get off this tangent, but just top to bottom, there's not a sport at JMU right now that you don't have significant bragging rights over every other university in this state.
Well, and to that point, I mean, I think the bragging rights have really transferred into the media coverage as well. I mean, there's a reason why the analysts on these major stations are more familiar with the JMU brand because they're seeing it. Even the casual fan is seeing it on game day. They're seeing it in publications like The Athletic and the national reporters who are consistently covering JMU football have now shifted their attention since that Michigan State win to also mentioning JMU basketball, keeping their eyes on this program as they went throughout the season. And I think that is reflected in the number of articles, the number of mentions that will kind of fuel people picking this team. I think we're going to be a popular pick over the next couple of days as people fill out those brackets. And again, that pays long-term dividends. Steve, I wanted to ask you, I thought one of our better interviews we ever did was with Jalen Carey and Xavier Brown. Not just because we got to know more about them as people, but we saw firsthand how much belief that they have in their ability to go far. Xavier Brown going as far as to say we can win a national championship. People throw things out there like that, but I actually believed him. And that's what I think made that comment so special. From hearing that and knowing where this team's mindset is and seeing their reaction, you have to feel good if you're somebody who's a purple cladded fan who's going to be making the trip up to Brooklyn about the belief in that locker room and the opportunity for this team to put the nation on notice that JMU basketball is going to be a hard out. And JMU is a basketball team that could be one of those groups that makes that magical run. Every year we see it. You look at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. I'd never heard of that school before they went on their run. And there's so many others, the George Masons that made their run through the tournament. This is not something that is just an every 10-year thing. This seems to happen every year where there's a team that does make noise and captures the national attention.
Yeah, this is it reminds me a lot. Again, I'll say of '82, and we didn't have podcasting back then, but I talked to Linton Towns and Dan Rulin back then, and they thought they would beat Carolina, and it wasn't. And it was just because we think we're good enough to match up, and we think we've got a shot. And nobody was like, it wasn't a big shock. So nobody was surprised. Same thing with the other day with these two guys. I don't think it's bragging. It's not bragging when you can do it. And I think they've got a legitimate shot of going deep. I don't know if I can say they can win the national championship. I mean, I'd love for it to happen. Anything can happen. Love the graphic. If you look at the graphic that JMU basketball put out, they put out Madison Madness. So they already are playing off the fact that University of Wisconsin's in Madison, Wisconsin.
Yep.
They already had that ready. I give them a lot of credit. At JMU, I'm sure they had multiple brackets ready because there was talk we'd play Washington State out in Omaha. There was all kinds of talk about different things where we'd match up. And it was great to see that come out. So I think it's legit. And I know we brag a lot, and I know I do my wrestling stuff, but at the end of the day, I'm rational. We beat Wisconsin. We'll run into a buzzsaw and a really pissed off Duke team if they can get past their first round opponent, and that's going to be hard. One game at a time. Wisconsin's going to be hard. I mean, it's a very good team, but they're tired, and we're not, and we go 9 deep. And these guys are ready. And I think the guys we saw the other day were extremely excited and ready to play. And I think, this is kind of it reminds me of the FAU team and the San Diego State team from last year. I was at the Final Four last year. I watched these teams play. We're not far off from that. In fact, I think we're probably on the same line as those guys. I think we're as good as FAU and as San Diego State. There were really good teams. And I think this JMU team lines up with that. Can we hit the right magic and hit lightning and go? I don't know, but I wouldn't count against us at all. And all the broadcasters are not. Everybody's talking about us, including Clark Kellogg, who got his butt kicked in '82 when we beat Ohio State, which was fun.
Well, so now I have a feeling many JMU people probably for the first time ever, unless they've gone up for other purposes, are probably Googling hotels in Brooklyn and train tickets and flights and figuring out their path. This is going to be a really fun next couple of days as everybody probably gets on text threads and sees who's going and tries to reunite with some people maybe they didn't think they'd see until football season again. But now we get one more opportunity for a real big gathering in the Big Apple where JMU can show the nation just what kind of support we have. I know we're all trying to figure out what our travel arrangements are going to be up to Brooklyn, but that in itself, I think, really shows the fun of an NCAA tournament berth is that usually it's football season when we have these types of rallying events. No bigger rallying event than the NCAA tournament and everything that comes with it. And to have it happen in Brooklyn and an arena, I can say from firsthand experience, the Barclays Center is spectacular. If you have any friends who went up this week for the Atlantic 10 tournament, I know a lot of people went up to see VCU and Richmond play. Everyone raves about the experience at the Barclays Center, rightfully so. There's plenty of opportunities around the Barclays Center in the surrounding area in Brooklyn. Steve, I know you know the area well. Give people a flavor for what they can expect to see when they make the trip up to Brooklyn.
Yeah, it's you'll have a blast. The Barclays Center is sitting on some old train tracks that used to be there when I was in law school. I went to law school in Brooklyn, and it was a dumpy area at the time. They were just broken down train tracks for the Long Island Railroad. It's a beautiful facility, beautiful place around that whole city or that whole part. If you can walk around and get over there, Brooklyn, Park Slope is beautiful. We're staying in Manhattan. It's cheaper to stay in Manhattan than it is to stay in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind taking the train, which is not a big deal, don't be afraid of taking the subway. But stay in Manhattan. You'll find that the hotel prices are probably $200 to $300 a night cheaper.
Yeah. Well, I would say, Steve, the other option on that too, as I just got back from New York, we were out on Long Island at UBS Arena, which is just right across the border into Long Island, still part of New York. You can actually get some really good hotels, and then you're just taking the Long Island Railroad into Brooklyn as well. So don't, if you see over the next couple of days, you're only finding kind of outrageous prices close to Brooklyn. As Steve said, Manhattan is an option, but some really, really great hotels that come with some other benefits by staying in Long Island. You're going to get some great pizza, great Italian restaurants, great bagels, lots of other things that Long Island has to offer. So a number of different places. I'm sure some people might even stay in New Jersey.
There's a great restaurant. Yeah, Jersey's fine. You just got to take a train through the pass. But there's a great restaurant, Italian place in NoHo. I know people have heard of Soho, but this is in NoHo. It's called Arturo, Arturo. They have coal fire pizza ovens. Unbelievable pizza. As Jonathan said, you'll find wonderful pizza on Long Island. I go to my place in Brooklyn where Dice Clay used to go. So if you're in Brooklyn and you hit me up, I can take you to several places that you won't find. They're not tourist places. They are regular neighborhood places, and there's some just wonderful food. Just great stuff to do.
And we'll put up a New York food recommendation post over the next couple of days because this is an area both Steve and I have a lot of familiarity with and something where I know we're excited. But one thing I want to mention that Taylor said I think is a really good point. There is a tremendous base of JMU students now and alums who live in New York. There has been huge growth on Long Island, especially over the last 5 to 10 years of students who have made the trip down. I know when I go up to Islander games with our producer Chandler and my dad Paul, we see JMU stuff all over the place. We see stickers, you see people, I always try to wear a JMU hat, even if I'm going to an Islander game or a Mets game, and people are saying, go Dukes when you're going through the arena, because this school's growth in New Jersey, Connecticut, really has exploded over the last couple of years. And again, that's an awesome opportunity for those Long Island-based alums and students to make the short trip up to Barclays Center, an area they're very familiar with, to make sure that there's a lot of purple. And that's in addition to the fans that are in Connecticut and everything else. So Jersey and Pennsylvania, another easy trip up to Brooklyn. So guys, we've been about 25 minutes in. Just as we get to the last kind of final segments of what we wanted to do tonight, just our recap. Any more thoughts that or any messages to the fan base as they start to get ready for this week's real excitement leading up to it too? I don't think it's just a game. I hope people really enjoy and take pride in what will happen. I have a guarantee there's going to be a tremendous amount of clips. We all saw Mark Byington on CBS Sports this weekend. I'm sure there's going to be numerous other national media appearances for both him as well as other players who will be making their voices heard and representing JMU the next couple of days. Lots of opportunity for school pride and opportunities on social media for bragging rights. I already know we just got messaged from, we're part of a podcast kind of coalition now of other university podcasts. And there's a Wisconsin podcast who wants to talk to us. And I'm sure that will be reciprocated so that there's that banter back and forth between the two schools. Again, lots of content, lots of coverage across the JMU landscape. And that's in addition to what I'm sure JMU Sports Blog and Sports News and others will put out. There'll be no shortage of things to listen to and watch that will have JMU in the mentions. Taylor, you want to go? Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if the sunglasses throw me off. So,
well, I mean, to get a little bit more into the X's and O's of everything, it was Xavier, I think, that pointed out, he made that comment about, Coach Byington tells us we have 9 starters. And just to really break that down a little bit, we have almost 7-8 guys averaging over 7 minutes a game. I'm sorry, back that up. We have 8 guys averaging over 15 minutes a game right now. You bring in Randleman with 9 minutes a game. So we're super deep. Wisconsin's getting all of their production mainly from their starting 5. And these starting 5, 4 of them have started all 34 games. The 5th guy started 33 games of the games he's even played. And so, one thing that JMU does have to its benefit that's going to go against these teams that, traditionally have a, bigger, more athletic team that is just, they're competing at a higher level, is the line changes that we're going to be able to throw in. We really do have, 8 or 9 guys deep that we can throw in. And again, you've seen this throughout the year where JMU has gotten to a point. I think the Georgia Southern game is a great example of this, where we were down, 15, 20? It was a ridiculous number. And we started pressing in the backcourt. We started keeping fresh legs in. They just weren't able to keep up, and we were able to gain that league back. So regardless of the talent level or the size or the athleticism, what you can't account for is that we can put in fresh legs statistically at a higher level than what Wisconsin can. And, the only thing, if you do want to compare apples to apples, Wisconsin did play their 2 games against Michigan State. They did beat them by a little over 10 points in both games. So that kind of gives you an idea of what they were able to do with a good Michigan State team, which, to be honest, Michigan State was, they beat a couple of ranked opponents this year. They also, in some of the closer games or the teams that they lost to, there were some top 10 opponents. They came within a couple of field goals of scoring. So this is going to be a good game. There's a reason why during the selection show, JMU's name kept getting brought up. And again, I mentioned it at the beginning of the show. This is going to be one of the most attractive 5-12 picks probably in the history of the bracket. And things do, if we were going to be a 12 seed, there's just not a lot more that can line up for JMU. I know Steve even put in that ESPN currently in their score chart has Wisconsin at a 67% chance of winning, which for a 5-12 game, I'd say that shows a lot of respect to JMU and what they can do. So there really isn't any reason for JMU fans to be disappointed about how this bracket has laid out. I hope a lot of people can get to the game. To be determined if I'm one of those people. We'll talk about that offline. I know
You're
John.
one of those people.
I mean, the other good part about this is we've had such bad officiating in the Sun Belt that they let you beat each other up. So it's going to be like we've been playing in the Big Ten because they don't call fouls in the Sun Belt. At least they don't call them when we get fouled. So we're used to getting hit. And so we're used to actually handling that. And we'll be able to pound right back on the Wisconsin folks because that's how they're going to officiate the game.
And what we also have is we have guys with height that can play the perimeter. I mean, we talked about Jalen Carey shooting some outside from the 3-point earlier this year. Terrence Edwards at 6'6" can play anywhere on the floor. And then Julian Wooden at 6, is he 6'8"? I believe. I'm not looking.
6'8".
That's a guy that in some games has more success behind the 3-point line than he does inside of it. Bickerstaff, I don't know if it was just confirmation bias, but he just looked different in the Sun Belt tournament. I know he's been playing a little banged up and having some health issues this year, but he just looked to have an intensity.
Madison,
and
31-3, first time since 2013.
I want to give a shout out if anyone's listening, if Lawrence Smith is listening. He put a great tweet out that I was just looking at, and if anyone is a fan of The Simpsons and remembers that Simpsons episode where Bart pauses the TV and goes, "You can see their heart get ripped out right here." And when you put the JMU reaction to the Wisconsin, it wasn't cool and calm Wisconsin like we got this. It was like, oh man, we're so. Again, I got the shades on. Everything is sunny at the Barclays Center. It's the Sun Belt. We're going to be bringing the sun to March Madness, and I'm excited. This is something I, as a college basketball fan, have only gotten to enjoy once before as a JMU fan. So I'm looking forward to this. And go Dukes!
Awesome. Well, they acted like we took their cheese and beer from them.
And you will see Taylor in Brooklyn, one way or the other.
We're going to a play too. We're on the off day, so we're going to go somewhere up in. We'll go see a play up in Times Square.
Awesome, Steve. Any final thoughts?
No, it's just going to be. We'll have a great time. I'm looking forward to it. I'm glad. It's a good point that Taylor made. I'm really glad that we took their cheese and beer from them. That's what they look like on a Friday or Saturday night when you everything's out of. They can't get any more beer, can't get any more cheese. They can get used to that. So I'm looking forward. I've gotten 2 texts from friends of mine. They're University of Wisconsin fans, and they're not happy. Both texts I just got. It's like that's the worst possible draw we could have.
Well, I will say this on Wisconsin, though, before you finish your point. There are some amazing fan bases in this country with college athletics. Just to give some props to the Wisconsin faithful, they've consistently been ranked one of the best college towns in America in Madison, but also a fan base that is going to show up in big numbers and will be clad in red and will make their voice heard, to be an understatement. And again, that's going to make for that much more of an incredible atmosphere that we're going to get to all experience for the people that make the trip, because you're going to be doing it against one of the more storied and proud fan bases and programs in the country in any level of all sports. I mean, they're not just a program that's good at one thing. They're good at a lot of different things.
Yeah. So we win this game. We also want to have you come to Harrisonburg and we'll play in football. So that's kind of how we'll do that. So
that's nice people. That's on my bucket list of stadiums if JMU could ever be on it.
Too.
Mine are all Big Ten schools. I went Penn State and I went Wisconsin. Pretty amazing trip.
I want nothing to do with Indiana. I don't need to see anything in Indiana other than Notre Dame. Notre Dame would be fine.
What was it, Taylor? Did you have another thought?
You're on mute, brother. We can't hear you.
I'm on the computer audio. There we go.
There you go.
Good. Mic is malfunctioning. Anyway, real quick about bucket lists. I just want to make a point that I put out on Twitter last night. UVA, it took them 40 years to play us. We haven't played Virginia Tech in basketball in 20. We've only played them twice in the last 34 years. We've got a good friend down there in Whit Babcock. I think we need to start making some things happen because, Virginia Tech can only continue to avoid the JMU men's basketball program for so long. And to be fair, they had their chance because there were some bad years of basketball in Harrisonburg that they could have pumped up those numbers. But even as I looked around some of the other programs around the state, I mean, even programs like Longwood and Liberty and Old Dominion and VCU, I mean, they've played their fair share of in-state folks over that long period of time. So I think it's time for the Hokies. We'll go down to Blacksburg. We're good enough to have them come to Harrisonburg, but I don't want to let them use that as an out. We'll go down to Blacksburg. We'll show them who the kings of the Commonwealth are, not only in football, but in all sports across the board, including men's basketball.
How about we put goals up in Roanoke and we'll play in the Walmart parking lot?
There we go.
Come on up. We'll play in the Walmart parking lot, Tech. We'll stripe it off for you. We'll even give you some bleachers for you guys. We'll stand. We don't care.
We can't do Botetourt. We don't got a Walmart. We do have a Dairy Queen. It's brand new. If anyone wants to come up, I'll take you out to the Dairy Queen.
Awesome. Well, my final thoughts really quickly is for the people who can't make the trip for a lot of legitimate reasons. We know it's on short notice. It's obviously there's an expense component involved, tickets and everything that goes into it. Try to find, again, a way to watch this game with some fellow Dukes. Again, even if it's one other person that you can have that experience with, it's going to make for an incredible opportunity for kind of that pride that comes with watching. And if the Dukes are able to pull off the victory against Wisconsin, just there's nothing better like celebrating with a couple of other people in JMU. I guarantee you the JMU Alumni Association will have viewing parties across the country. There'll be the formal ones, but there's also going to be the spontaneous ones that happen, again, through those text messages and everything else that's happening on social media right now. So stay tuned. We'll try to amplify as many of those viewing parties as we can, in addition to pointing people to the official sources that will have that information out. JMUsports.com, all the JMU social accounts, I have no doubt will be amplifying this as well. And again, just enjoy the next couple of days, soak in all the coverage that you can, because again, you never know when these types of opportunities are going to happen. And a big congratulations one more time to the players, the coaches, the support staff, and everybody associated with the program at JMU, Jeff Bourne, Jeff Polglace, and so many others who put so much work into helping this program get to where they are. This moment's for you. And again, enjoy the next few days. And everyone who is going to go to Brooklyn, safe travels. We look forward to seeing many of you at whatever Duke Club event or other tailgates and pre-game things that happen in Brooklyn. And as always, go Dukes and JMU Sound Off. Stay tuned to our accounts as we go throughout the week. We'll have additional information about the JMU Dukes run to the NCAA tournament and beyond. And we'll talk to you guys soon.